Yo, everybody, what's up? And welcome to Manifestation Microdose. Today, our topic is called the 3 keys to orgasmic manifestation. If that sounds pretty weird to some of you, stick around because you've got a couple of interesting things that we can unpack in the next half an hour. Really, the topic that we're talking about today is this topic of feminine, our inner feminine, what it represents, and how we can use it in the process of manifestation. I want to start this off with a story and let you know that up until probably maybe 2 years ago, I had no idea that I had feminine energy inside of me. The idea would have just been super weird for me. It wasn't a topic of conversation that I had in the circles in which I moved in my previous life. I could quite clearly say it was a blind spot. I had no idea. I knew we had men and women, but the idea of masculine and feminine energies, and specifically feminine energy inside somebody in a male body, wasn't something that I knew too much about. So today we're going to unpack that, and I just want to quickly share why understanding this part has become such a critical piece of my lifestyle design journey. And this is the part where, as we start to recognize the feminine parts of ourselves, we can start to realize where we may be overdeveloped in the masculine parts of ourselves. So for me, that means living in a world where I had to move fast. I worked hard in a business. It was all about competition and moving through the world in a very specific way. I was very disconnected from ideas of and projects related to collaboration because my world was more framed around competition. I also found myself a little bit disconnected from my emotions, which is an integrated and well-developed feminine allows you to be able to pay attention to this important emotional guidance system that we talk about inside this group as a way to be able to see when you're in alignment with your process for manifestation. And so this has really been a powerful tool for me to be able to integrate into my life. And when we spoke about relationships last week in our microdose, manifestation microdose with Araminta, quite a few people asked about feminine. How do I develop my feminine? These questions came from both people in male bodies as well as people in female bodies, that they wanted to find a way to be able to develop their feminine. And so I'm not going to spend too much time unpacking how I got to that, but I think it was just an important piece to understand that we both have masculine and feminine energies inside ourselves, both men and women. And we need to be able to make sure that we are recognizing and creating space for both of these important parts of ourselves so that we can be more integrated, so that we are, for me, more in touch with my emotional body and more in a space of collaboration, and that the world wasn't just one of competition. So after having received these requests last week, we spent some time trying to find out who's the best person to unpack this idea of integrating your feminine. And someone that we know through an organization called Esther, a friend of Araminta's and somebody that I met about a year ago when I was in Bali, is Aaron Kleinerman. We're speaking to Aaron today, and Aaron is a transformational sex and relationship coach, facilitator, and a speaker. He's a lead male teacher for the Eli Tantra School, a tantric practitioner, and the creator of the Conscious Man's Guide to the Bedroom. He's learned from the great masters in the field of sexuality and transformation, including earning a master's degree in spiritual psychology. Aaron went from being a licensed captain navigating ships to a sexual behavior and movement specialist navigating souls. His workshops, retreats, sessions, speeches help humans integrate body movement, psychology, sexuality, and spirituality. He speaks and teaches honestly and transparently so that others can unlock the real reason for their human existence. Aaron's mastery as a teacher provides the tools that everyone needs to implement embodied, awakened intelligence into their daily life. So let me welcome Aaron Kleinerman, who is joining me from Bali. Hello, brother. How's it going?
Hey, man. Great to be here.
Thanks for jumping on. I know that you have a lot happening in your world at the moment, busy organizing an online feminine symposium, which we're going to talk about. But what else is keeping you busy, or is that pretty much it at the moment, brother?
Pretty much. That's got about 70 teachers coming in for it, so it's a pretty massive undertaking. But after that, I'll have a little digital detox of my own. But yeah, I live here in Bali with my beloved and riding out the waves of the COVID craziness here in Bali.
Bro, talk me through what makes feminism, the integrated feminine, so important. What is this? Why is this work important to you? What do you see? What's the reason you're taking so much of your life to organize a symposium around the integrated feminine. What does that really mean?
Yeah, good question. For me, the path of the human experience is we know polarity. So we know happiness, we know sadness, we know goodness, we know badness, we know kind, we know cruel. And so everyone listening has either been born into a male body or female body. And as a male body, we typically know more masculine oriented traits better, and we're more aware of it in terms of our childhood development. If you're born into a female body, you typically know more female-oriented traits. We can break down all those traits, but really the point is to have wholeness in the body, we have to understand, feel, and actually have a deeper awareness of both of these traits within us. So the point of feminine integration, if we look at, there's a lot of conversation of patriarchy, and the patriarchy is falling, and more of this feminine awareness is coming onto the planet. And certainly that can be there. And as well, historically, there's been more matriarchal, more feminine oriented cultures and worlds that have been there before, but there's aspects of that didn't work either. So what we're diving into with feminine integration is how can we bring that, especially for male bodies, into more day-to-day life. And what that means with feminine integration is more of the qualities of receptivity, of deep listening, of inner awareness, of emotional intelligence is a word that gets thrown around a lot. So all of these characteristics aren't necessarily the ones associated to masculinity, which is direction, which is poise, which is clarity, which is penetration. So if you look at kind of the masculine is this penetrative force, and the feminine is actually the energy that swirls around it. But the amazing thing about feminine, why it's so important, is what is the only thing that actually breaks down stones and rocks?
Water.
Water.
Yeah.
Water. And so water, this feminine element that we can flush through our body. Often the only thing that we think can fix us is that we have to have more understanding and intention, and we're trying to figure it out, and we're always getting there in the mind. And actually, when we learn to slow down, pause, and allow our feminine waters to flush through our body, then we can flush through all the things that no longer serve for us and actually give us more resource to manifesting, to creating the life that we want. But if we don't have an inner awareness of our feminine characteristics, then we're often just a talking head trying to get somewhere in the world. And we have enough of those in the planet. We need to actually create a new reality.
That's powerful when you frame it that way. I know you're going to get into the 3 keys for orgasmic manifestation. Is there any other way that you can see that can help create an awareness for ourselves to see this emotional piece that might be blocked in specific ways? How do we develop that emotional awareness that you're talking about? How do you tell the Gareth of a few years ago, like, to find a way to tune into your emotional body where you've been disconnected from it?
Yeah, good question. What I find is that we begin to become a student of our body and reactions. When I say that, it means we always have an opportunity towards evolution and growth, but what that requires is when you get into an argument with your beloved, when you get upset, with your mother or father, when you become sad, we start to track our emotional responses as a resource to ask the question of what's underneath that emotion. What is it that this particular moment has given me a reaction towards? Because I'm only going to have a response to things that there's some juice, there's some energy, there's some gold in that for me. So I have to be able to utilize life as a reflective world. That means that anything that's happening in my outside that I haven't learned to love and appreciate on the inside is often going to create a reaction. So when people become reacting to a statement, to a word, to politics, to anything happening in the world, the question that we can ask is, what is the outside reflecting to me on the inside? And in that, what's being reflected on the inside, am I willing to actually love it? Because often the only thing that we're creating is the people, places, and experiences into our current reality to help us love and appreciate the perfection of the past. What does that mean? Is that until we can say thank you, I wouldn't want my past any other way, then we're recreating our life over and over again. We're hitting our head against the same brick wall, because we haven't actually learned to love and appreciate the perfection, the joy, the hidden blessing of that brick wall. And so we have to learn to slow down, to pause, and to start to have a deeper look at what it is that we're actually creating, and look at the response that that's giving us in our body as a tool, as an opportunity to go and do our own inner work. So, this is getting into shadow work. This is getting into mining into our unconscious. And a lot of
Mm.
people, they don't want to do it. They just want to keep going with their head. And if you're listening, you're like, yeah, that's good with me. But if you recognize, wow, there's some patterns, there's some misunderstandings of reality, there's some ways of being inside of me that I have not actually deeply confronted, and I'm ready to make a different reality, that's when this work really begins to hit home.
Cool. I'm going to ask you one more question before I allow you to unpack your 3 keys. And the question is going to be, can you give me an example of where you've seen that? Like an actual example of where this has maybe manifested, maybe in your life, or where you've seen it with someone, so we can understand that. So while you prepare that, I just want to say, while you're tuning in, please send us some love. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and share your questions. At the end of this, Aaron will be happy to answer any of your questions related to integrating your feminine. So back to you, Aaron. Where do you see this part where we're using an example to show where we're not tuning into this part that's reflecting the inner work we haven't done in our outside world around us? Have you got like a practical example?
In my early 20s, I did a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and I was speaking and teaching from stage and understanding law of attraction and human behavior, and I was studying with some of the great minds in this field, and it was beautiful. But what I consistently noticed was I understood things from kind of the neck up. I had maybe a little bit of heart-centered understanding, but I had all this like great knowledge and wisdom, and maybe some of the people listening can relate to this. But what I was noticing was, as much as I understood, my life wasn't dictating any real drastic changes. Like, certainly I was evolving and shifting, but on a very cellular level, I was still noticing the same patterns that were replaying. I wasn't, manifesting all this money that all the people told me I would be. I wasn't doing all the things that all the self-development gurus were saying. I was still feeling quite empty inside, and a little bit lost. And I was doing the work, but what I was noticing, a lot of it was just kind of mind up. It was a lot of intellect and understanding and concepts and beliefs and all that, which is really important. And then when I actually like dove deep into the world of more embodied awakening, more like diving into the unconscious, diving into the patterns, the beliefs, and like this kind of dreary, ugly, like demise parts inside of us that I wasn't willing to confront, and then feel those and move through those, that's where I started to see actual shifts in terms of my ability to manifest clients, my ability to manifest money, my ability to manifest more of the life of my dreams. Because what I was noticing was the shift was happening on a cellular level. So I say all this is because, first, it's important. I'm really glad I had these years of studying and understanding, and I still study a lot. But it wasn't until I got more into the fields of Tantra. My partner and I teach a Tantra school. I don't want to overwhelm people with that concept, but more, Tantra is just a space that allows all of the human experience. That means that all the sadness, all the anger, all the despair, all the happiness, all the pleasure, it's all part of this one joyride of existence. And so to actually manifest, and this is kind of where I'll lead into, to actually like have orgasmic manifestation means that it has to happen on an embodied level. It has to happen going into the cells, going into our being, because until it's happening there, it's just going to be concepts that we're thinking about, and we can be really good. We're in a very penetrative, intellectual driven world. So our intellect can take us quite far, but I've met, and seen, I'm sure some of you can relate to some of the smartest individuals with the greatest minds and the greatest CEOs, but yet still on an embodied level, there's still things that they feel they want different. And there's still this like, I have all the dollars, I have all the things I want, I have the Ferraris, but something just doesn't feel right. And 99% of the time is that's because still inside the body, there's trauma of the childhood, There's pain bodies inside of us that haven't had a chance to express. And all of that energy is just like, let me feel me, stop pushing me down, stop pushing me down. And so it gets suppressed and suppressed. And what happens when we suppress this energy? Cancer is created, all of these diseases in the body. So if you actually want to manifest health, if you want to manifest the partner of your dreams, if you want to manifest, more zeros in your bank account, then you have to start actually feeling all of the things that you haven't been willing to feel. And a lot of people listening, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's for those weird people who get all crazy and wild and eclectic. But no, it's there for you. This is the gift of our current reality, is that we can't just get on social media anymore and just say how the world is terrible. We have to actually close the computer and say, oh, what is all of the thing that's happening on the outside? What is that reminding me of that's happening on the inside? And when we can have permission to feel that, then we can begin to create more spaciousness into our life.
So beautiful, bro. It's really a great articulation of some of the questions that I see inside this group, where people are coming here to learn about manifestation and the law of attraction. And they say things like, okay, I'm doing all the things. I'm being grateful. I've done this and I've showed up. I've got my order board. I've done the perfect day exercise, and they've got all the things, but where are the things? And it's basically this idea of just not being able to feel it in the body and really be able to have that experience before it exists is the process of manifestation. To be able to own your desire, be clear about what that is, and then let go of it, which is more the feminine, to be able to attract it in and to release the doing, which many of us, and I'm particularly guilty of this, want to go out and do more to get the thing to show up. And sometimes it's about being clear about what you want and doing less and letting it come to you, realizing that it doesn't have to be a hustle. So thanks for sharing that, bro. I'd love you to jump into your 3 keys for orgasmic manifestation, and then share with us the important work that you're doing around your feminine symposium before we wrap this up.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the first key is, and I've been sharing it a little bit, but it's quite simple but very profound, and that's embodied listening. And now when I say embodied listening, that means that as you are a human going out into your world, there can be certain interactions you have, there can be certain moments you have where you notice that you're having a visceral response. Sometimes it's on a very subtle level, sometimes it's on a very reactive level. What embodied listening means is that you listen to that response that's coming in, and then from that response you can then choose to say, wow, there's something here that's scratching on on the skin. I'm going to now take responsibility for my emotions, go back and feel what I need to, let my body vibrate. Because if you're trying to manifest and you're not listening to these subtle energetics through the body, then you're just overriding the body. And when you override the body gets very upset. So embodied listening means that you're listening to these responses that are coming in. You're going and letting the body vibrate through dance, through sound, through breath, through movement, and then utilizing the awareness that you take to then apply that into what you're trying to manifest, rather than the place of, oh, I'm just going to, as Gareth was so beautifully just saying, I'm just going to go do, and not listen to the cues that are coming back. Because when you listen to the cues that are coming back, sometimes the trajectory of what you're trying to manifest will change based upon the very subtleties to which you're feeling and hearing.
So beautiful, man. It feels like something that all of us could be doing in the world at the moment, is listening. We're getting signals all the time from the planet and the people that we're interacting with, and it's such an important piece. So yeah, key number 1, embodied listening. What's key number 2?
So key number 2 is heart-centered decision-making. And what I'm going to, I'll give an example of that, and I'll bring it back to my maritime days. So often on the bridge of a ship, and I'll look at a ship as a vessel. We're all in a vessel. But actually on the bridge of a vessel out on the middle of the ocean, you often will have a co-navigator and a navigator. And now the co-navigator, it's the one assimilating the weather, the winds, the tide, the currents, taking in all of the information and then giving that to the navigator, who then makes a decision saying, okay, we're going to go left 20, or we're going to, slow down the vessel because of the weather, whatever it is. And for most people, the navigator is the mind. And the mind is like taking all this information and then trying to make a decision. What I like to shift in terms of manifestation is actually shifting so that the heart becomes the navigator and the mind becomes a co-navigator. Most people in life are existing as the mind as the navigator, the heart as the co-navigator. We're going to make this shift so that you can actually have more heart-centered decision making when that moment arises. Because when the moment arises, when you have a decision in front of you, if you're only making that decision from the information seeking, assimilating machine of the mind, then you're not actually listening deeper to the energetics of the soul. And I say the soul, that might be weird. What's this guy talking about the soul? But the soul is the most deeply connected space of the heart. So to have heart-centered decision making in our life means that we recognize in our mind the complementary balance that's around us. We see the good, we see the bad, we see the naughty, we see the nice, we see the polarity of the human experience. We take all that in, and then that actually opens up new neural pathways for the heart to step in and say, hey, I'm actually going to go, and hold my boundaries here and go towards the right. Or I'm actually going to lean into this job opportunity more because it feels directed to my heart. So heart-centered decision making is almost, it's thrown around a lot because there's not necessarily a context for people to understand. So the heart feels spaciousness to feel when the mind is balanced and equilibrated in its thoughts, perceptions, beliefs, and ideas. And that's really where we can then decide into our life moving forward from the heart. And that creates more spaciousness for the soul to flourish.
It flows really well from listening, because I think making a heart-centered decision requires the first key, the embodied listening, to be able to feel what this decision is. It has a little bit to do with trusting your gut as opposed to making a decision based purely with stats and with the mind.
Absolutely. And so our third tip is really around sexual integration. And I say the word sexual and people are like, oh wow, these guys are weird, what's going on, oh my god, sex. There's so much stigmatism and belief to sex because it's completely misunderstood, misbelieved. And really I say that because it is the key that ties all of this in terms of orgasmic manifestation. So Gareth and I are both having this conversation because mommy and daddy came together at one point. Sperm and cell met and created, sperm and egg met and created life. So the most powerful energy that we know, it's what created the opportunity to have the human experience, is our sexual energy. And yet that is the energy that is most normally pushed down. It's pushed aside. It's like, oh, that's weird. I don't want to deal with that. There's a lot of shame, fear, and guilt inside of it. So when I say sexual integration, it means that you as a being listening to that need to start unpacking all of the shame, all of the uncomfortability, all of the things inside of your sexuality, to have the conversations you're not willing to have with your partner, to look yourself into the mirror and say, God damn, you're beautiful, to touch your genitals and to say, wow, I love this body temple, and this body temple is what's going to create the world and the desire that I want. And so to orgasmically manifest means that we have sexual integration and we allow sexual life force energy to flow through our body. When we allow sexual life force energy to flow through our body, and then we utilize that moment of our peak to say, you know what, I'm not going to release my orgasm. I'm going to let the orgasm run through my entire body. That's really where, I'm just tapping into and I won't get into it too deep, the places of sex magic and things like that. These are all these terms that are out there. But what it means is that you as a being have integration of your sexuality. You have integration of your receptivity and your feminine that likes to flow, that likes to feel. Your penetrative power, especially as male bodies, that when you're utilizing your wand of light, your phallus, your cock, whatever word you want to use it, you have consciousness to it. And if you've never even had the conversation of what is conscious sexuality, that's a whole nother conversation. Reach out. Either one of us can absolutely support in that. But this place of sexual integration for orgasmic manifestation is it's like looking at a cake that doesn't have any frosting on top. It's really dull, it's really boring, and it needs the fucking frosting, because if it doesn't have the frosting, then you're not going to manifest, because it needs life force. It's like, yes, give me life force, give me existence, give me all of that, because that's what manifests into your world. So that as well means you have to feel and get into the shadows of your sexuality in order to actually manifest the life of your dreams.
Why do you think we have so much guilt and shame around our sexual energy?
Because for most of us growing up, our parents had tremendous guilt and shame around our sexuality. So that's the imprint that we took. Society in general, I was just talking about, I'm doing a talk on top of this. It was just pre-recorded, but around sexual education for parents. It's happening. It's a free seminar happening this weekend. And we were just talking about this the other day on the talk, because for most of us, like, there's not an understanding that, for one, in the womb, we actually play with ourselves. We actually like have masturbation with ourselves, often in the womb. And you can look at photos and research that studies this. So we come out and we're this very free sexual being. But then as we're a young little boy or little girl, and maybe we're just touching our genitals, and what happens is the mother or father takes the hand away from the genitals, saying, "Ooh, that's bad. Stop doing that." And the child's like, "Oh, I want to play with my genitals." And the mother's like, "Ooh, that's making me feel uncomfortable. So stop doing that, because it's making me feel uncomfortable." So, and then as we get older, a certain point comes where it's like the child recognizes everyone in this planet is really weird around the sexuality. So I guess the only way to actually fit in is I have to do the same. And so what does that manifest and develop as? So much of this, oh, if we're going to have sex, turn the lights off, because I can't see nudity. I can't see these things. Oh, I feel really weird when you're naked around me. So put some clothes on so I don't feel weird anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that, people take this to the other side of like, I'm just going to be wild and naked and free, and I don't care about what anyone else thinks. There's tactful awareness. And so the reason that there's so much shadow around our sexuality is because most of us have never actually had a solid, like, embodied education around how to handle and work with sexual energy, is because most of the people in our world that never had an awareness themselves. The individuals I look at that have a deeper sexual integration and less shadows around their sexuality have done a lot of work, or were raised in a family that had a lot more sexual freedom, because the shame and the fear and the guilt wasn't programmed and imprinted upon us at a young age. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I have all that, my life is doomed. No, you begin to confront these shadows. You begin to confront these patterns and beliefs so that you can create more spaciousness in your life to manifest what you truly want and desire.
So powerful. It's such a big part of the integration that I've done in the last couple of years in myself, and it's an ongoing journey. I've spoken in this group before about this analogy of leaking gas, where you spend time worrying about things, that life force and that focus is leaking away from your ability to be able to manifest the things that you truly want. And for me, I know there's a part of my life when my sexual energy was completely driving my decision making, not from a place of empowered, integrated sexual life force, but more this place of like, I needed to get some sort of external validation from my sexual connections as a way to make me feel better. And I got stuck in a loop of like continually looking for happiness outside of myself. And I spent a huge amount of my life force chasing sexual connection to make myself feel better. And until I took the time to be able to really look at these parts and like, you don't have to be ashamed of your desires. You are able to own that you love being intimate, that I was really able to let go of all of that old programming. So I feel that, and I feel like it's such a rich but deep topic, and it's got so many layers, and it's ingrained with so many taboos in some cultures and stuff like that. I just think it's really an important thing to look at. So yeah, for those of you that have just joined in, please feel free to let us know where you've joined in from, say where you're from in the comments below, and any questions that you have for Aaron. He's just unpacked the 3 keys to orgasmic manifestation. And the first one is embodied listening, this ability to be able to hear what's coming into our world and not just processing it through our heads, but listening to it through our bodies. How does what I hear make me feel? The second key was called heart-centered decision making. And heart-centered decision making is when I have this information, how do I then make decisions, not just with my head, but also with my heart and with my body by tuning into my emotions. And the third key was what he's just unpacked, which is sexual integration. And this is a part of being able to celebrate every single part of us and not feel any shame or guilt around the fact that we are sexual beings on this planet, and that sex is the very reason that we ended up, every single one of us is in this matrix because of sexual creation, and it's the most powerful manifestation process we have. And so to make sure that we've embraced that, embodied it, and accepted it as part of who we are is to incorporate and integrate a very big part of our human technology. So thank you for sharing those three keys, brother. I think it's really, really powerful. I would love to hear a little bit more about the Integrated Feminine Symposium that you are putting together. Who's going? Who's it for? What can we learn at the Integrated Feminine Symposium?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my longings and dreams in this world is to create spaces that people can feel safe enough to unpack some of these places. And so what I've done with this feminine symposium, and I did it with the masculine several months ago, is bring in some of the best teachers and speakers and presenters in the field of understanding masculine feminine dynamics in the realms of how do I show up as a more empowered and powerful soul in the world? How do I show up as a better leader? And so this whole Integrated Feminine Symposium, it starts actually tomorrow, but it's going to be both a live event and 70 recorded sessions for people to experience after as well. And it's workshops on womb wisdom, intuition, awakening your psychic abilities, awakening your inner healer, manifesting the partner of your dreams. All of these more like manifesting and creative practices and tools that all of these teachers, some of them, there's a woman coming in who lived with Osho for almost 20 years and has been teaching in this field for 40 years. Like there's such a massive amount of wisdom and knowledge that's coming into this. And one of my dreams is that, especially in today's world, there's a lot of people suffering, and I wanted to create a product that could reach the masses of people at a very affordable price. So all of these teachers, many of them for their workshops and seminars, charge thousands of dollars for their one-on-one sessions, for their time, for their energy, because this field is quite specific around like mastering feminine energy. And so I brought them all together to say, hey, I want to create something that can reach the masses. So all of this, the whole entire package, both the event and afterwards, is only $100. And what I've actually arranged with Gareth here is for all of you we're going to give you a code so you can receive all that for even 15% off of that price. So pretty much you can get this entire, all the workshops. Go into it this weekend. It's going to be happening live workshops, 24 hours a day, one after another, but they're all recorded. And then you have lifetime access to all these recordings as well. Gareth's partner, Araminta's coming in. She's going to be teaching on the dignity of desire. She's an amazing teacher and facilitator as well. So really so much knowledge and wisdom so that the feminine in us all can begin to feel safe in their body and begin from that place of safety, begin to apply their wisdom in the world. So if you're listening and whether you're in a female body or male body, and you're longing for more safety, you're longing to feel your creative expression in the world, you're longing to understand and unpack your emotionality and the things that maybe you didn't have a deeper understanding of as a child, this is for you. It's basically a cornucopia of all of the best teachers and presenters in this field, so that you can kind of go in and have this massive buffet and say, I like this, I don't like this, I want to taste this, and do it for in a very affordable price. I've been, I did this with the masculine one several months ago, and that was a great success. You can still, if you're a man listening to this and you want to, get into all of that, you can go, I'll be on the same link, and you can go to the Integrated Masculine, and all of those sessions and recordings all available in an 8-week online course. So 2 very different offerings, but the feminine one happening in just 2 days, that can be there for male bodies as well. And I especially, if you're a man and you're like, oh, maybe this is a little bit weird to go to a feminine symposium, listen and try. Diving into my femininity was the icing on the top that has supported me into manifesting the life of my dreams here in Bali, into having the partner that I couldn't never even imagine. All of the orgasmic manifestation that I've been talking about as a male body happened when I went into the depths and the ugliness of my femininity.
So good. So the code to be able to access this workshop is livemoreperfectdays.com/fem for feminine. And then the number's 15, fem15, livemoreperfectdays.com/fem15. Aaron, how do people consume this content? What is it like, Zoom calls, or is it inside a Facebook group? What happens when we spend the discounted $85 to get into this symposium? We show up in a Facebook group, or how does it look?
Yeah, so you'll show up on Zoom calls. All of the live workshops are happening on Zoom. All the Zoom will be recorded. And then there's a whole online interactive Facebook community. There's several hundred people in there, and they're talking, they're vibing, they're understanding. So it's creating a whole community vibe. I did the masculine one back in June, and that community is still flourishing. There's still new people buying the course every day. And it's this whole place to really like feel vulnerable enough to ask questions that maybe you've never been willing to do before. So that place is really beautiful. And going into Zoom, it's not as great as being in a workshop live, but it's the second best thing. And to try to get all of these teachers at a live festival symposium would probably be 100% impossible, because I know for myself, before COVID happened, I was a crazy traveling man, living out of my bag, going from one city to another, and all of these teachers were doing the same. So trying to do all of that scheduling to bring this all together would never happen. So we're in unprecedented times, and you can get all of this in the comfort of your own home. And that's really the joy of being able to do this work right now.
So just for clarity, the $85 pass gives them access to this weekend over the next 3 days, but it also gives them lifetime access to the content, so they can continue to show up and watch it later, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Aaron, I want to say thank you so much for showing up and for doing this really important work. I feel like I'm such a rookie when I speak to people like you and Araminta and to Raven, your partner, who have spent so much time unpacking this really, really important work. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing in the world, brother, and the amount of time that it takes to bring so many powerful facilitators together is a scheduling job I wouldn't like to have, but I'm really, really grateful that you're taking the time with your team to put this together. So if you're looking to get access to the Feminine Symposium, this integrated feminism symposium with more than 70 teachers talking about various topics around integrating your feminine, articulating different things. This workshop is for men and for women, and it's probably for you if you think it's weird. If you think this is like something that you don't want to get involved in, there's probably a reason that you're feeling that, and it's probably for you. So if you've watched this and been like, these dudes are a little bit weird, I would suggest that you go and check it out. Do you have some guarantee, bro? If people don't like the vibe, they've got the chance to get out and get their money back or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, if people come in and they're like, "This absolutely isn't for me," I'm happy. I'm more than happy to offer discounts. What I experienced is any of the people from the last one that were a little bit on the edge, they went in and they were the people that have been, saying, "Oh my God, this was the most life-changing experience ever," and they're still talking about it. So they're usually the ones that can't shut up after the fact.
That's been true for me in so many things in my life. Every time I've been like, oh, that's not something that I would even look at in my world. There's always something there. There's a reason that you need to go and look under these places that feel uncomfortable. So thank you so much again for showing up in this community, for sharing your 3 keys to orgasmic manifestation, and for putting together the symposium and creating the opportunity for this community to access it for a discount. So if you're looking to register for this event, go to livemoreperfectdays.com/fem15. And hopefully you're going to be joining Aaron inside his symposium. Thanks again, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for creating the space to have this dialogue. I love you and I appreciate you.
Love you too, bro. Much love.
All right.
Cheers, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks. Ciao.